All right. So I guess now you understand what the plan was.
Absolutely. At Colts Law, we talk Indianapolis Colts football.
We're going to stick to what we know, fundamentals and technique, 1% better every day.
What's going on, Colts Nation? How's it going? I'm just checking to make sure. Okay, we're all here. So my chat on my OBS, there's something wrong there. YouTube had some kind of issue with it. So I'm going to have to use my YouTube studio chat in here. And what's up, Truett? What's up, Gary? Appreciate you guys being here. As you can see, I am joined as usual by Loyalist, and today we got Joe with us as well. Why is that? Because he sat down and he watched the Colts-Vikings game hardcore. He had a few things that he wanted to bring up, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to bring it up, but I just wanted to shout out real quick, just for myself, because it's exciting. At least for me it is. Got that new podcast I was talking about, and sat down, talked with DeQuell for a while, and this is the intro that we did right here. Welcome to Believe in Colts. I'm Lawrence Owen, and with me, DeQuell Jackson. DeQuell, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Lawrence, it's great to finally get this started, talk some ball, talk a little Colts football. That's why we're here. Let's do it.
Absolutely. Now, this isn't actually doing a podcast. You'll be able to catch us on podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts, whether it be iTunes, Spotify, wherever. But I just let you know, we're both here. We're both going to be talking about the Indianapolis Colts. We're going to be talking stories. We're going to be talking all kinds of stuff. Man, I am really excited about hanging out with you this year and just discussing football in general, man.
Hey, listen, you and my wife definitely, she'll probably say the same thing, because I talk to her about X's and O's all the time, and it's finally to be on a platform dedicated to the Colts, so you and I can chop it up, talk a little ball, talk a little X's and O's, something that I love to do. Absolutely love to do it.
All right. Well, can't wait to get this started. Hopefully we'll get our first episode out in the next couple days, right? And then, hey, you know what? If you're watching this, make sure you go check us out. Go to wherever you're listening, hit follow, and start downloading, because you're not going to want to miss a single episode. And until next time, I'm Lawrence Owen. That's DeQuell Jackson. And as usual, have a good one.
Let's do it.
And that was fun. That was fun. We set up a time to where we're going to record our first episode tomorrow at noon. Might be out tomorrow afternoon, maybe evening, somewhere around in there. I mean, depending upon where you listen to your podcasts or whatnot, it might come out the next day, but it will be uploaded on my channel, okay, right here on Lawrence Owen, but it'll be under the playlist of Believe in Colts and not Colts Law or anything of that nature. So, really excited, talked to him, said, hey, what do you want to do? And he says, man, I've always wanted to talk X's and O's with people, and my wife's, is just my wife basically, and I said, you know what, we could talk stories if you like stories. He says, man, I got so many stories, it's not even funny. There's a ton of them, and I asked him about maybe bringing guests, former players that he used to play with and stuff, and he was like, yeah, absolutely. There's guys, I know all kind of people I could probably bring on. So really looking forward to doing that with him. Really, really excited. It's a huge thing for me, man. So make sure you go and check that out. Go check out Believe in Colts. We're still editing a little bit of the site, because, before it had, Jake Arthur and Zach Hicks on there, and it still, has that whole introduction on that. And we're editing all that stuff out and putting new artwork and stuff like that up. So it's a process, okay? And it takes a little while for these platforms to update that process once we get it done. So, but either way, Joe, thanks for coming on, man. What'd you think of that game on Saturday?
Well, I mean, it was sloppy.
obviously, but I mean, I think looking at it from an overarching perspective, I can kind of see I think what they were trying to do with their roster. It told me just looking at their initial personnel groupings what they're going to some of the people that they know that they're going to have in certain roles at what spots on the depth chart, um, particularly at running back. Obviously, I mean, Hines started the game. And it kind of gave me some insight into that. But then on the flip side of that, if you look on the defensive side of the ball, you also had, Pay in there for quite a lot of snaps. And I think with that, they were trying to get him some reps in a game situation because he was out of practice for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, hey, let's just throw the guy in there and see what he could do. But I thought it was kind of interesting. I don't want to go too long here before we get into whatever content that you've got planned for us today. But I thought it was a really interesting to watch. Not only that, but then kind of how things kind of transformed into. Then you had a lot of guys out there that they're trying to evaluate to see if they're actually going to make the cut, because now it's going to go from 80 down to 53 on the next cut. So
Matt asks, how important do you think it was that Pay got that first sack?
Well, I think that was actually huge, and that was one of the things that I was really kind of trying to pay attention to. I didn't get to do a deep dive on everything. Obviously, I had a pretty crazy day yesterday, so I didn't get to do as much of a deep dive as I wanted to. But certain players I really kind of looked at, and he was the big one because I've been champing that guy for months now. I think it was huge. If you get one of those a game, you're first team All Pro.
Yeah,
you're in the pro. You're first team All Pro. So it was good to see, particularly because, well, I can get into more of the details on what I saw from him prior to that sack, but I don't want to cut everybody. I don't want to clip everybody out here, so I can maybe save that for if we get into that subject a little bit later. But I thought it was huge. For him because he played differently after he got it.
Loyalist, what's up, my guy? Got a question for you. We're going to just kind of bring it on to you as well. Do you think getting that first sack, how important was that to his own self-confidence and just kind of shaking things off, so that he can move forward with his progression? How do you feel about that?
I think Joe, hit it on the head. I mean, because honestly, defense especially it seems like momentum's more involved and getting into that rhythm and just finding that. I don't want to say belief, because I would have to believe, being a first round pick, that Quiddy's belief in himself is pretty high. But just sitting there and knowing that, what, this isn't, too big for me, and that I do belong, and just more of a validation, I think, is, a better way to put it. I mean, you get out there and you get those nerves. I mean, even Quiddy said in his presser afterwards how he was out there and he was extra juiced and felt a little nervous and stuff. And I thought we saw that early on. But yeah, like you said, just getting out there, feeling the lights, hearing the crowd, getting out there, and laying the wood to somebody, and just knowing that this is validation for all the hard work that he's put in the last several months, heck, the last several years, because he really didn't get utilized, I don't think, to his maximum out of Michigan. So I think this is just got to be a super, super start for him. I know it was only in preseason, but I mean, like we said, all those guys out there, even the second and third stringers, there's some pretty stout competition.
Yeah, there was an interesting question in here, actually, that I thought was I'm going to bring up. He says, do you know if any of our quarterbacks are currently working with Adam Dedeaux, I'm assuming is who you're asking about. And that is actually Carson Wentz's personal quarterback trainer. So, yeah, Carson Wentz works with him on a personal basis, yes. Now, the other two guys, I'm not 100% sure, but I know that for a fact. What's up, KDC City? Zen Edwards, Truitt, Gary, Lawrence, everybody in here. appreciate each and every one of you. Please don't forget to smash that like button, hit subscribe if you're not subscribed, tag that notification bell. Don't forget about that share button down there on the right side of Joe over there, right below him. You can share that to your favorite social media and help me out a little bit. What are some other big things, Joe, that you saw from that game? Did anyone else stand out for you besides Quiddy?
Well, let me kind of circle back to that for a moment and just kind of elaborate on a little, since we're getting into other. What I saw from him, he was actually getting manhandled by Hill on running downs in particular.
Mm-hmm.
That was a little bit of a point of concern for me, because Darisaw was out, and to see that happen with a backup left tackle is a little bit concerning, particularly in the run game. I mean, they didn't draft the guy to technically be a run stuffer, but at the same time, when you're in a 4-3, you've got to have that in your lexicon. You have to have that skill set. So I think what they're trying to kind of bring him in slowly and just say, hey, look, just do this, get better at this, master this, and we'll go from there and not try to heap too much on the kid at one time. Because after he got that sack, interestingly enough, he did look like a different player, because then they were bringing people in on chip blocks to double team him, and he was blowing people up and still driving Hill back. So what I saw at the end of his time in that game was really, really encouraging. The other thing that kind of stood out to me, not necessarily in a good way, was just how I don't want to say this, limited the offense is going to be with Ellinger at the helm. Looking at a lot of different things, there were some things I thought were concerns coming into that game, but really sitting down and watching and breaking down some of the plays, the progressions, the concepts that were in use, and looking at how he reacted to that, really, really kind of concerns me.
Yeah, I agree. Like you said, Joe, I mean, you sit out there and I don't think there's a single one of us that thought he had a good day, and I mean, it didn't help that, some of the starting guards were, getting pushed back into his lap and stuff, and he did not deal well with that. And I mean, and that's counterproductive to his weakest point, and that's his size, his stature. So, you lose that extra spacing, and then that even cuts down your angle of vision, you know what I mean? And like you said, I don't like the way he responded to that immediately, and quite honestly, I that part of it, I think he'll work out, that's just simply getting the reps and getting out there and having the experience. Because, I mean, yes, he played at Texas and he played with some decent-sized guys, but, most of them weren't 6'5", 6'6", and that's just on his inside. You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, also, I mean, if you didn't notice, Ellinger didn't make a single pass attempt past 10 yards. He made some completions that ended up further than 10 yards, like that little quick out to Naheem Hines where he took it for 18, but not a single attempt did he throw further than 10 yards. And I'm kind of wondering if he's, like we said before, because of his stature, maybe he can't see down the field in certain areas, maybe his arm strength was a little bit of a worrisome part of trying to get the ball downfield. They're playing their starters out there in the secondary against him. Maybe they were, he was worried about guys being able to close in a little quicker on his passes. It's just a lot of things, like you said, it was a little worrisome with him. He threw 2 interceptions. One, you could say, maybe not his fault. The other one, I honestly think it was. Frank Reich even said that it's kind of weird, because Frank said he didn't think that the one that I thought was 100% on him was 100% on him, because the route was wrong. That the wide receiver ran the wrong route, a little miscommunication there. Either way, in that situation, Ellinger should have known better than to throw the football in the first place. in that specific situation, because the cornerback was all over that wide receiver's back before he even began the windup, let alone by the time the ball left his hand. So it was just, to me, he telegraphed that throw incredibly, like from the get-go. And, he was just pretty much telling the cornerback, go get this, I'm about ready to throw it. So it made me a little worried about that. That's the one thing that, when it comes to Eason, we complain that he throws the ball too hard all the time. The majority of the time, like when you're throwing like 5, 10, 15-yard passes, and he throws, basically teleports the ball to wherever it's going. It's like out of his hand and appears right there at the other guy. You've seen it, but the benefit of that is, granted, the wide receivers don't have a lot of time to react to that pass, but neither do the defenders, and I will trust, your offensive weapons to react quicker to a pass like that than the defenders, because the defenders, aren't getting those all the time. If they were able to have hands like that, they'd be on the offense, wouldn't they? I mean,
yeah. and that's the thing about, Ehlinger, is he just doesn't have the arm talent to throw out of trouble, to avoid and hit those tight windows.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if he doesn't have 100% placement, and lead the receiver, then there again, just that half beat that the DBs have to adjust to the ball, sometimes that's all they need.
Well, yeah, and not only that, but I think there's a few things that kind of showcase. You did mention pressure up the gut, which was a little bit concerning. But I think also that if you're a defensive coach, if you're a defensive player that's been in the league for a while, and you've had a chance to sit down and watch film of Ehlinger, I think it gives you an opportunity to scheme and play a different sort of technique against a quarterback like him, to get that pressure up the gut, to focus on trying to get that pressure up the gut, because then that showcases also his decision-making ability when he has to flush out of the pocket. And what that did was that exposed, okay, on a play like the first interception he threw, where you saw that was a dagger concept, which is designed longer developing, crossing routes over, the middle of the field to kind of expose that the linebackers there. When he's on plays like that, then again, his decision making to sit in the pocket and to throw that ball into traffic where it's going to get batted down. Do you put that on the offensive line, or do you put that on the fact that that was a designed, dagger concept play, but then he can't flush out of the pocket and see, well, this isn't there for me because I'm going to end up throwing the ball into traffic, instead of just taking that play and saying, I'm taking off and I'm going to do something. I'm going to try to do something with this outside route here. So, I mean, all of those kinds of concepts, the Y cross, even the dragon concept, you're going to run into limitations with him. He did really well when they were calling screens.
Mm-hmm.
He did really well when Hines was catching balls out of the backfield, that's things of that nature. Hitch routes, like you mentioned, he didn't really throw a ball downfield the whole game. So those are the kind of going to be the limitations. I think it's really starting to come out now, where you're seeing that this guy is just going to shorten the field for a defense.
Yeah. Nice thing about it, I'll tell you what, I know that this is a problem that we'll need to keep trying to get through and stuff. But quite honestly, hopefully it's a moot point, because starting to look, after the news that we saw today and stuff, looks like that this is a conversation that can be had a little bit later on down the season, and hopefully by then he'll work through some of those things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, speaking of that, I think that's a pretty good time to transition into today's practice. Speaking of which, while we're here, don't forget to smash that like button, hit subscribe if you're not subscribed, tag that notification bell. Also, if you want to do a super chat, to make sure you get your question or comment in, use that link in the description of the video right below. I would really, really appreciate it. And don't forget, You can check me out on Newsbreak. Me and Loyalist are on there. You can support the channel for free because the app is free and it financially supports us. This video is sponsored by Newsbreak. Newsbreak is an app used over 1.5 billion times a month by people just like you to get local news via articles or videos by those who are focused on that specific area. People like myself. Just use the link in the description of this video to download it. Then search a city, state, or someone specific, like myself, Colts Law. Then make sure to follow them so you'll get all the news fresh as it comes out. All right, so getting into today's news about Carson Wentz, Ryan Kelly, and Quenton Nelson coming back and practicing today. Practicing. And they were like, well, it's going to be, limited. Dude was out there doing, he took every 7-on-7 snap today. He didn't participate in the 11-on-11s. He didn't practice in the full team drills. But if you take the defensive line, the offensive line out, that's where he was at. That's what he was doing. And apparently while he was doing that, he actually did really, really well. He moved around a lot. From what I understand, Wentz went 10 of 15 with one single interception because he threw it a little bit behind Tyler Vaughn's in his first outing. 8 of 15 in the second period, which isn't all that good. But at the same time, he ended up combined for an 18 of 30, hitting Kylan Granson 3 times, Hilton 3 times, Jack Doyle a couple times, Strawn a couple times, Taylor a couple times, Pittman, Jordan, bunch of people, right? And I guess he had 3 touchdowns.
Let's not forget about DeMichael Harris.
Yeah.
That was a beautiful catch.
He had one pass to DeMichael, one pass to Benny LeMay and Jordan Thomas and Marlon and he had some really nice stuff going for him and his footwork. That's the thing. He had surgery on his foot. And now I went and looked. There was a post today, not a couple hours ago, by NFL doctors here on YouTube, right? And they were discussing the injury that Carson Wentz had and talking about the surgery he had. And they were saying that in this surgery, it has nothing, the surgery itself on the bone and stuff, just removing the bone, when they went in, he says that the tendon that attaches to that bone was still attached to the bone that was still there, and that wasn't removed. It was the broken piece that they removed out, and there was no damage in there. So legitimately, all Wentz and Nelson have to do is wait for the incision to heal up, and they're good. And that's why it was such a quick return, So really, I mean, you've seen the clips. I don't know if you've seen the clips, Joe, but Carson Wentz was doing hard zigzags back and forth, sharp, hard zigzags and stuff of that nature, and planting really hard on that injured foot. Plus, we got to worry about tomorrow. What's that foot going to look like and feel like in the morning after he put all that work on it? All right. Everybody's like, well, he was out there. He looked great. But we don't know how that foot's going to react to that all that work that it had. So, I'm cautiously optimistic, but I don't want to go, well, Carson's starting week 1, because we still have to sit and see how that foot reacts to these practices. But he did say in his presser today that, someone asked him, how do you balance between wanting to get back early as possible and yet, taking your time and making sure that everything's healed up. And he says, yeah, I want to be out there right now doing everything, but I'm going to listen to my trainers. I'm going to listen to the doctors, and they're going to dictate what I'm doing and when I'm doing it. And that's all I wanted to hear. As long as that decision isn't up to the player, I'm good. I mean, obviously his pain tolerance, should be up to him. But when it comes to the actual, medical side of things, leave that up to your trainers and your doctors. And he says he's going to. So I think that's absolute fantastic. We'll probably know by the third preseason game, whether or not Wentz, we'll probably have a better idea anyhow on whether or not Wentz could start week 1 or not.
Yeah. I knew I was only going to be able to make one of the 2 practices, either Monday or Tuesday. So I was like, well, I got everything done Monday, thinking that I'd see more action out of Carson and Q and them on tomorrow. And then after seeing this today, I'm like, you know what? I probably picked the wrong day here because, like you said, I could honestly see him, just sort of observing and paying attention, see how much it swells and see what the pain level is and stuff in the morning. But hopefully, everything will just double down and as it was today, and all the news will be good, and we'll get to see him out there because Coach said, his biggest question mark now is just, stacking the days and getting, back-to-back days and seeing how he holds up during that. So, but yeah, I was so blown away with, not just the fact that he was doing these motions, but he was, like you said earlier, he was so aggressive. It looked like he was, trying to stop a bug every time. He was, he was even over-exaggerating and putting extra pressure on the foot and stuff. So, it wasn't like he went out there and treated this with the mindset that, oh, this thing might hurt. He really just looked like he was out there, and it was the only reason that was in the front of his mind was he was just trying to show to everybody, look, I got no problems with this thing. Letting all the doctors and all the coaching staff know, let's do this. And I'll tell you right now, man, I am so stoked because I know you want to be cautiously optimistic, but heck with that, man. I want to see him so bad. If he can get in these couple days of practice and then follow it up with the 2 weeks that they have before week 1, let's go.
Rub some dirt on it. Rub some dirt on it. And from what you're describing, it sounds like that because, the thing about it is when you get something like that that's been analyzed, surgically fixed, you've had all the x-rays, all that kind of stuff where you found you've isolated the problem, you figured out what's been wrong all this time, you take care of the problem. Okay, yeah, you got a little bit of healing to do, but in those types of situations where there's no more damage and there's no real way for him to cause any more damage to that injury because that part of it has been removed, that's the best thing you can do is get out there and use it. In terms of recovery, any type of injury or anything like physical therapy, any type of rehab like that is going to be painful, but they do it for a reason so that you can build the soft tissue back up, whether that's muscular, whether that's tendons, and all that stuff works together, particularly with your foot. That's the foundation of your body. And so if you're describing that type of scenario, it's really good to see that because then what that tells me is it almost is like saying that he has had this lingering like a thorn in his side this whole time where he's been afraid to use his foot the way he needs to use his foot. And that's what's maybe caused some of his issues. And now that that's taken away, it's like a dog that got too big, that got a collar that was too small on their neck cut off or something like that.
Got that freedom.
Yeah, you got that freedom now. It's like, oh yeah, I can do this again without,
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I got you, man. Also going in with this, as we talked about, Ryan Kelly, Quenton Nelson, they went back at practice today as well. Not as much covered on them, but they did all the individual drills just like Wentz did. Now they again, like Wentz, they were held out of the full team period, but they went through all the positional, all the individual drills, and that's a good sign. That's again finding out where that injury is and how it reacts to that extra work for tomorrow. Something I did want to say was there was an update on Dayo Odeyingbo. Apparently they are very optimistic. They saying that he's progressing very, very well, and that he said if he had to guess, they expect Odeyingbo to start the season on the PUP list, not IR, which is a huge thing. IR is one thing. IR is your injury reserve. You're not even on the 53. They plan on having Dio on the 53 on the PUP list. And when they put him on there, that's like 3 weeks. 3 weeks. So apparently they're optimistic we could see him before the first half of the season. That's huge news, and it's, honestly, in my own personal opinion, didn't expect to hear that. What are your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, I was I just like you. I was just like, today was just a day full of surprises. I mean? I expected to see Carson and Q and Ryan. Yeah, heck, I expected to see Ryan last week, But, then you not only see him, but you hear about how aggressive and stuff. And then the Dio, like you said, from the way I understood the interview and stuff, I mean, it seems like he's just maybe a week or two behind Fisher as far as, how things are progressing, because he sort of, showed like a correlation, as to what they'd already saw from Fisher and what they're seeing from Dio. So it's like, I hear that, and I know what we've seen from, Fisher out there, off to the side and stuff. So if Dio's on course there, I mean, this could, I mean, I'm not trying to, hype this thing up too much, but this could honestly be earlier than, week 4, week 5, or somewhere around there, where I know a lot of us, we were sort of thinking, maybe closer to, week 10. But I mean, who knows? I mean, if he's not that far off of Fisher, and if Fisher can get back in the first couple weeks, I mean, if we can get Dio back by week 5, I mean, I know it'll be after, the major tough part that we have there at the beginning, but still, anytime you can bring in a talent like his and upgrade it, what's up?
The only difference, there is a difference between Fisher and Odengbo. Fisher is a 9-year veteran. All right, He understands his roles. He's going to go out there. He's going to play. He'll only need a week or two to get caught up to speed, understand he's probably already done all the playbook stuff that he possibly can, mental reps and stuff like that. He's getting out and getting their physical shape, blah, blah, blah. With Dio, it's a little different because he's a rookie and he's raw. So he might get back. I expect him to get back within that time frame that they're, given, being that they're putting him on a PUP list. But I wouldn't expect him to see hardly any action that first month of practice, because of the simple fact that, they're going to have to go with him like they went with Pay. It's going to take time for him to get up to NFL speed, let alone, learn everything, get into NFL shape and work on his moves and all that stuff, because he's a rookie. So it's a little bit different than what we're going to be expecting from Fisher. At least that's my opinion on it and what I'm expecting. Am I being too cautious here, Joe, or do you think that that they might throw him out there?
Well, I think you're going to have to be honest with you. But you kind of took the words right out of my mouth with that, because Fisher, he's a veteran. He's been, he's a Super Bowl champion. And he's been around the block, more than a few times. With this, you're talking about bringing a rookie into not just having to get reps and get your body used to playing under a different coach with different group of guys and all that type of stuff, but also then having to adjust to the talent gradient that's in the NFL. In college, the talent gradient is like, this, in the NFL, it's like that. When you really break it down. I mean, the difference between the best quarterback in the NFL and the worst quarterback in the NFL is nothing like what you would compare it at the college level. So he's going to have to, he's playing with the big boys, and he's going to have to get not only his body and mind adjusted to that, but then also, like you said, he's going to have to get reps out there and develop chemistry with the team that he's on. And if you've got, a second round pick invested and you're saying, okay, look, we spent a second round pick on this dude. He's going to heal quicker than a 30-year-old's going to heal. We get this guy to where he can play again and get him out there and use him. because and see where we're at, because you're not going to do him any favors. And typically it's interesting when you talk particularly about edge guys, because I was thinking about this with Pay too. Particularly edge guys, their rookie year, you bring them in, because you see what the raw talent that's there, but it typically takes them like a year to hit their stride before they really start to hit that heavy production. To me, it's like not necessarily like running backs, I think, but it takes like with edge guys, I think it takes them a good full solid year to really get to understand, not just mentally, but physically, what that's going to take for them to do their jobs at the pro level. And then you see it, year 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, with all these big, name pass rushers. They're in contract years. They're knocking it out of the park. They're killing people. And then, that's why you always say you're a little bit cautious about bringing in a pass rusher on a big contract, because then they kind of tend to fall off after like year 6 or 7 because of the way that they have to play. So I think that's really important for them to get him out there as soon as possible, throw him into the mix and see what the kid can do.
Yeah, especially with the fact that he's missed all this training camp, because, once the regular season starts, the practices aren't as educational or whatever you want to call it. You don't get as many reps as far as learning technique and stuff. So, and another thing about Dio is, he doesn't always have to be on the outside. You could put him on the inside and use it as a fill-in or something in a place of a DeForest or something if he's needing to catch a break. So I'm just curious. And like you said, I understand that he's going to have that slow progression. But honestly, if we can get anything out of Dio this year, I think it's going to be more than what a lot of us was expecting when we drafted him. Because quite honestly, at the time, we weren't sure anything about how far he was with his rehab. We had to wait. And, and a lot of us, once we got over we didn't get a tackle situation, a lot of us sat there and I feel like we came to grips with and understood the choice. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So like I said, if we can get anything out of him, whether it's, right, just reps or whether it's actual, plays of value, I think anything is added bonus.
Yeah. And I just hope it doesn't turn into a situation where they're like, we got a second. And I don't think that Ballard would do this, but we got a second round pick in here. We have to make a roster spot for him and make sure he's on the PUP list. And I don't see that happening with the way they're handling all these other situations with injuries. I think NFL wide, I think now, particularly this year after how bad 2020 was with injuries, I think the NFL in general is just being like kind of maybe overly cautious about this stuff. So if that's the case, that's a good sign that they feel that he's going to be able to perform sooner rather than later.
Yeah, after last year. Oh my goodness, man.
Hey, Law, you said you watched that doctor stuff. Mm-hmm. Do you know, is there an orthotic or anything that might aid in, getting Quenton and Carson back that might offer some protection? Because I know now, like, last year with Rivers at his toe, that shoe of his went through a massive construction project.
Well, what's
funny,
he could. What's funny from what I was seeing, and I'm going to show this. This is going to be weird. I've never dropped my shoes on the channel here before, but give me a second. I'll show you where the doctor was saying the incision is put at. So let's say this is your foot, right? The incision is right here, right along the outside part of the left foot, right? And they went in and they didn't mess with the tendon. They didn't cut the tendon. They didn't cut much of the muscle. And what they did, they cut with the grain of the muscle rather than against the grain, and just opened it up, went in, took the bone out, closed it back up, sewed it up. Bam. Done. So I don't know if there's an orthotic for the side of your foot.
You know
what I'm saying?
Just keep him from when he gets kicked or something that can just disperse that a little bit more.
But the fact that they were able to go into the side of the foot rather than the bottom of the foot to do that that means a lot. They're not having to worry about their weight and stepping on it all the time. A lot better pain management, right? At least the way I see it. So, yes, guys, I go out there and I do my stinking research. All right. But I think we've been in here and discussing this for 40 minutes. Holy crap! I think we should probably get into the chat a little bit. Whoops. How was everybody's day anyhow? While I go through the chat, how was your day today, Joe?
It was okay. I mean, I got a lot going on here at the house. Yesterday was even worse, but today was a good day. It was a very beautiful day outside. It's been really dry here lately, like really dry, really hot. And, I sweat. I've always been like a real heavy sweater. Terrible. I can't wear, but if I have a job where I'm like this, I sweat. I was sweating when I got on the show. So I was hot today, but other than that, it was a pretty good day. We got some stuff figured out for this house and everything. Other than that, I had a little bit of an electrical issue yesterday, which was fun, but we got everything taken care of. So it was a good day.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I'm reading 20 likes, guys. Smash that like button. I'd appreciate it. Share this out. Loyalist, how was your day today?
Well, my day started off rough. I'm still trying to get my 2019-2020 federal refund checks. And for some reason, there is a wall of barrier, But fortunately for me, that was the first thing I did today. And everything after that just went bump, 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 bump. Everything, we heard about Carson, we hear about you and your new partner, and actually got to see a little bit of that. So that was awesome. And then, like I said, I got to dig in a little bit deeper with the Colts and what we actually, actually saw and got to hear the pressers and stuff. And man, my day just kept getting better. Now, if I could just get that tax checks.
Right. Shout out Alpha Wolf. What's up? Appreciate you being here. Brandon Wood, how you doing, man? Buck Dancer. Lawrence Stogner asks how Strawn's doing, his progress. And honestly, it seems to me like Strawn has taken a step back over the last few days, whereas, the previous couple weeks, he's really, where he was really just kind of dominating the storylines. He kind of have leveled out, maybe even calmed down a little bit since then. What do you think, Loyalist?
I like leveling out. I don't think that he's, I'm serious. I don't think that he's regressed. I mean, yes, I think he was underwhelming at the game Saturday, but we could say that about a lot of people, especially from the receiving corps compared to the week before. But as far as, I think they're getting more looks from some of these other guys that, we haven't seen sort of, trailing from the back. But like I said, I mean, Strawn has been so consistently impressive. I wouldn't want to sit there and say that he's leveled off. We'll know more tomorrow. Obviously, we'll get out there and get eyes on it and see what we see. But, I'm hoping it's just more of a, their new shiny topics to talk about and stuff. So hopefully that's all it is.
Yep. Aaron Stackhouse, what's going on, my guy? He says, I think we're all fairly optimistic about Wentz week one. But let's say he's not back week one. How confident are each of you in Eason? And I'll go ahead and say less. Joe, you watched both games for the Colts this preseason. What are your thoughts on Eason, and how confident would you be to have him start week one against Seattle?
I would feel good about it, to be totally honest with you, because I think what he enables you to do more than Ellinger, you hear all the time, he throws the ball too hard. Okay, well, we all know he's got a cannon for an arm. There are situations where, you want to be able to maybe take a little bit off of it, but then you run into a situation where you're sailing balls, and that can work out against you. Just kind of let the guy do what he does. The only concern I really have about Eason is just him not just standing 7 yards back and letting the end of the whip catch up with him. Step up into the pocket, make your throws. He's got the height, he's got the vision. I would feel. I feel pretty good about it. I mean, I'm not expecting the kid to go out there and win a Super Bowl or anything like that, but he has shown that he definitely does have some moxie in terms of how and Ellinger does too. Ellinger's he has, it seems like they both have a reasonable command of the offense, particularly after having gotten some first team reps. And then you get first team, and I think it's good. So I feel a lot better about it. So maybe the Carson Wentz injury wasn't all bad, because chemistry is a huge thing. And you don't typically get that with a lot of backup quarterbacks when they come in. They don't get that time with the first team because it's all about, the starter, because you're getting you want to get maximum return on that huge investment that you've got. So I feel really confident, to be honest with you, in terms of any backup situation that I'm really looking at. I feel like Yins are in a really good spot when it comes to your backup situation right now.
Yeah, and I'm very stoked about it. I mean, some of the things that we questioned, you touched on, you called it moxie, but there was a lot of question about, does Jacob have the mental grit or the mental toughness, and can he work through his progressions? And I think, Lawrence, we've seen him week 1, first couple days of camp, and now you see him out there, and there is a massive improvement on, like you said, his command of the offense and how fast he's going through his progressions. And he does have the talent and his arm and stuff to overcome some of the, like if he sees somebody a little late, he does have enough arm talent that he can still fit it in there. Hopefully he doesn't, but if he has to, it's there. It's something he has to fall back on. And then to turn around and sit there and see how good he is, especially rolling to his right, how good he is with the mobility and how much more comfortable he's come. All the things that were his bigger weak points and stuff, I feel like the team has really worked at a very high level. And it's just like after the first game, against the Panthers, okay, he's dropping too deep in the pocket. 6 days later, we watch him perform and not a single sack. He seemed to find that, So this kid is learning at a rate that you would want to see. Yes, you're still going to have the concerns that you always have with the backup, consistency and making the right choices at all the times. But we sat there and we discussed how important it was for Quiddy to get that first sack. I argue that it was more important for Jacob to get out there and get more reps just because of the lack of experience that he had in his college career, and the fact that he's been out there day in and day out slinging the rock. And it's not been a cakewalk. Sam has pushed him at times. Sam has, the media's pointed it out a ton. So I'm sure he's heard at least some of it, So to sit there and say that, it's the end of the world if Carson isn't back week 1, no. And I would say that it allows the Colts a little bit of cushion or whatever if they choose to err on the side of caution, that, they can count on Jacob to help out and stuff. So I'm not that concerned about the Seattle game. And I think the biggest important game would be the LA game, because honestly, then you've got, that defense putting all that pressure on your quarterback. I'd really like to have Carson with his experience and his knowledge and the times that he's played against that defense. I'd rather have that experience versus, putting Eason out there week 2 in that situation.
And I feel like that goes into, okay, I think he is capable of doing everything, maybe not to the extent that Carson is capable, but I think he's capable. I think when you've got Eason on the field, you've got your entire playbook at your disposal except for maybe bootlegs and stuff like that, which,
he ran a heck of a freaking naked bootleg on Saturday.
And we did see that. We did see that finally from him. He wasn't. He looked like a freaking horse out there. But I mean, he did a good job on that play. But I mean, I don't see a lot of that in the mix. But I feel like you've got full command of your playbook, and not only for the quarterback and from a strategic standpoint, but also from the standpoint of that all of the other skill players on that team and the offensive line. That allows them, and that keeps them engaged with your main playbook, and that keeps everything kind of in the same flow, rather than I would be a lot more concerned if it was Ellinger.
Yeah, and not to mention, I mean, this will be the first, if this was to happen, it might be the first game where he's actually been on the field with Ryan Kelly, Quenton Nelson, if either of those guys can make it week one. And that alone's got to give him a little bit more peace of mind, I think, versus, some of the combinations that he's been working behind through camp and stuff.
All right. Want to shout out Toxic. Thanks for being in here again. Says, I look for Deo to play down the depth chart this year. I do too. I don't expect him to be in the ones, probably not even in the twos, until he gets a lot more practice and understanding. He says 50 snaps this year would be invaluable to him for the course of and absolutely any snaps that he gets, live game action snaps. I don't care if it's 20. I don't care if it's 200. I don't expect 200, but any snaps at all, even if it's where he's put in because, say the Colts do have like a 3-score lead, in the fourth quarter, and they're just like, Dio, you're doing well. Let's see what you can do right now, even though you're not particularly ready, maybe or maybe not. But yeah, those reps would definitely help him out a ton. Fuzzy Whistler's in here. What's going on? Appreciate you being in there. Official Rich 1 just here to say, I told you all, Carson was fine. See you at the Super Bowl. Well, you know what? If that happens, I will be all up on that like nobody's business. What's going on, Julian Pollings? I really hope we see that. Let's see here. Just going through. Brian, Nomadic Brian says we have potential with Jacob. I think he has secured the number 2 spot. Well, we'll find out this Friday.
Yeah.
If he goes out there and starts, because this Friday's dress rehearsal, right? It's the 3rd game. And Reich even said this is, basically, when you have the 4 games, it's basically your dress rehearsal. They're going to play the starters for longer than normal, not quite a full half maybe, but some starters will play longer than others because they need the snaps. If we see Eason out there, hopefully he'll be out there with the starters, and hopefully we'll see something a lot different than what we saw with Ellinger with the starters this past Saturday. That's just something that is really been on my mind. A lot of people was worried about that because Ellinger ain't played with any starters yet. He hasn't. When he started week 1 against the Panthers, he was playing with the backups. They didn't play any starters that game. So this week it's all starters, and I think this will be invaluable for him to try to get an idea of what we have with him as a starting unit if we need him week 1.
If they even want to go that route at this point, because me personally, I agree. I think we have seen enough from Eason that I feel like for myself, after watching these past 2 games and seeing the difference when Ellinger was out there. Now, granted, I mean, he only had Nyheim Hines in the backfield, so that also plays into, okay, what are we doing here? But to see the difference in the team and how they were playing when Eason came into the game, you could just see an immediate difference. So I don't even know if they, Eason's been on this is what it says, year 2.
But he's like a red shirt freshman, though.
He pretty much is, yeah. I almost feel like they're gonna, okay, we're gonna do the same thing with Ellinger. and go from there. I mean, that's how I would approach it after what I've seen. But I'm not Frank Reich. I'm not Chris Ballard. I'm not getting paid, at King's Ransom to do this stuff. I just a fan, who played it at one point. So it's just my opinion. But
yep. Anthony Hurt says 40 listeners, my dogs, guys. Let's eat that like button. Let's tag that like button, man. A lot. All right. If you can tag it multiple times, if you have like 15 like accounts because you like to troll people, go ahead and use those troll accounts and go ahead and like this stream. I'd appreciate it.
And if you smack it a lot of times, just make sure you stop on the odd one so we keep the like.
Right. Purity says, I'm excited for Carson, Nelson, and Kelly back. Absolutely. Now, there were some people that have been held out due to injury, like Sasha Ray, obviously, had that concussion on the very last play of the game. So he's still in concussion protocol. And then, give me a moment while I bring up the injuries that were there.
We also had 3 cuts today.
Yeah. So. Yep. Which we had, and a big one in this. I mean, Joey Ivy's the only guy who had a sack in the Panthers game, and he was let go. Andrew Bowler, which, I mean, come on. We got 4 tight ends that we're looking at right now because the tight end I said look out for on the Vikings game actually did something, a couple things. But what is big to me is Sky Moore's cut. Sky Moore was cut, which means
he was injured. He was injured, don't forget. So, they're probably going to cut him and then put him on that injured reserve,
Maybe. Because they cut him early. Yeah.
Yeah, if he clears the deadline.
Guys that did not show up at practice today was Taylor Stallworth because he had a hamstring, Jordan Glasgow with a back, the tight end Noah did not play, Penter obviously because he's still in the boot. All right, he was in the butt. EJ Speed's dealing with a knee injury. Tyquan Lewis is still working with a shoulder. Antoine Woods has that hamstring. Teray still dealing with the shoulder. And then, of course, Malik Jefferson, Marvell Tell, and Carter O'Donnell are all out because of, I think it's COVID, isn't it? I think.
The one that stands out there for me is Glasgow. Because, and it's not so much that he's out, but I mean, he's been dealing with this back now all camp. Last week he got in 2 days of practice, and then got very little run during the game, and now he's back. I'm wondering if if his spot. I mean, I know how the Colts value their special teams, and I know that's his bread and butter. But if the guy can't perform, and especially because of a back, that's a big for me. In his style of play and that way he, goes running down the field with his hair on fire and turns his body into a weapon. It's like, you really don't want that guy having back problems. So that one there, I'm sort of trying to keep an eye on for myself.
Yeah. Brian says 6 or 7 wide receivers. I don't see 7. And I think we're going to have an odd man out. I think we're going to have a few odd men out. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree as far as the 6. I mean, I can see a couple going to the practice squad, but as far as making the 53, I mean, there's just so much talent on this team, and this roster has just got so many. I mean, you got your linebackers, and we're sitting here wondering, okay, do we keep 4 or 5 safeties? I mean, there's a lot of tough questions coming up over the next 10 days or so.
Yep, I agree. What's up, Marky Beverly? Says, what's up, Colts Law, Loyalist, Owenberg. Easton will be fine. I just think he needs to take a little heat off of the ball. when he throws laser beam short passes. Now, think about this. If he's throwing the ball that hard throughout all of training camp and during the preseason, the guys are going to slowly get used to it. And like we talked about, as used to it as you possibly can, obviously. And like we talked about earlier, the defenders, they're only going to see it one game, unless they play in the division, then they'll see it. They're not going to have a shot at getting that football. They're going to be like, what the heck just happened? That ball goes through the air so fast that they might not even notice that the pass happened and that the guy in front of them has the football and is running down the field with it. All right? It's one of those weird things. But, yeah, if they get used to that, and Joe brought it up earlier, man, if he starts doing change-ups now, then it could affect his accuracy. It could affect timing. It could affect a lot of things, not just with him, but other receivers as well. I agree that he needs to take a little heat off of it at times. I mean, if you've got a guy who's running a screen play 5 yards away from you, you don't need to put it, right between the two bars on his face mask. But, I don't want to mess up any timing that these guys already have as well. So, Toxic says, hey, Elway's receivers got used to him.
Exactly.
Yeah. And look what ended up happening there. And I agree. I mean, because then, like you said, it goes both ways, because then the defense has to react to that ball being where it is at the last second. Like, wait a minute. Especially if he learns how to look off receivers. That's a pretty dangerous combination. Like, if he can get that peripheral vision going and just zip a ball out there and, like, oh, wait a minute. You see the field shift left a little bit. Then next thing you know, you're throwing, a wheel out in the flat and there's nobody out there. And it turns into 20 yards, So you never are more, but I just feel like there's way more upside with him than with Ellinger.
And he has found a little bit of touch. I mean, yes, it's not a consistent, but I mean, seriously, we went out there the first few days and we're like, oh, that ball was placed perfectly. We just didn't see it get there because, like Lawrence said, everything was 180 miles an hour, And we have seen, and especially last week's game, there was a few little screen passes and stuff where, heck, he almost underthrew that one. It was like, wait, what's that?
And it's not like he doesn't have touch. We've seen he can put perfect touch on a football, when it comes to your longer passes. We've seen that, I mean, prime examples to pass to Paris Campbell during the preseason game, We've seen that at practice during training camp where he can throw beautiful arcing passes. It's just it's not a rainbow. He don't throw rainbow arcing passes with touch, but it has enough to where it'll drop right over the top of the defender, and that's what really you're looking for, So he has that, and I appreciate that you guys are in here talking about it as well. Wentz says he has beautiful touch on longer passes.
Yeah, and that's what you want too, because here's the deal. Then you don't want to end up like a Mason Rudolph type of situation where you're throwing the ball into the rafters and it takes 2 hours for it to come down, and then your receivers like got to take something off of his stride to get back under the ball, and that gives the defense longer, especially on those deep routes like that. If he can get that, I just feel like with that kid, you're going to be able to just air it out and take the top off of the defense, especially with a guy like Campbell in there, because those two together on the same field, if they get a chemistry going, look out, because that's where you don't want a rainbow when you got a guy like Campbell, because he can run past anybody.
Exactly.
And I'll tell you what, I honestly feel like, when this year is all said and done, aside from the lack of experience that Eason has, I think we're going to find that our backup situation at quarterback this year is going to be better than, everybody used to sit there and say how amazing Jacoby Brissett was as a backup quarterback, But you always knew with Jacoby that he wasn't going to challenge, defenders. He wasn't going to air it out unless the receiver was, massively open. Easton, we've already seen that, he's got enough belief in himself and enough faith in that arm of his, and I call it an arm loosely, that, I think that we're going to find that we have a much higher backup situation than we've had in the past, few years with Jacoby.
Yeah, we ain't seen a guy this good at backup since Curtis Painter.
He did.
Oh.
Hey, Curtis did exactly what we needed him to do that
year. Yes, he did. He got us Andrew Luck. All right, guys. We've been on here for over an hour. I appreciate each and every one of you. Truett, thanks for being in here again. I know you're always, whenever you show up, you're here first and last, man. So I appreciate you being in here. Wasn't Texas a high-powered offense? I want to answer that question real quick. Yes, it was. The Longhorns generally are kind of a high-powered offense. It's what they generally try to strive to be. But it doesn't mean that you have a high-powered quarterback behind it. He's just a guy who knew how to get the ball to his playmakers, right?
The Big 12 don't play defense.
Yeah.
So they don't play defense in that conference. So every offense looks like a high-powered offense.
There you go. All right, guys. I appreciate each and every one of you here. I'm going to go and get some things done myself around the house. We got a lot of stuff to take care of. I want a special shout-out. Thanks for Joe for joining us today. Seems like you're here more often than not anymore, and I appreciate the fact that you spend your take time out of your life and come on and talk football with us, man.
Hey, it's enjoyable.
Give us an awesome point of view. I appreciate it, man.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm just glad I'm able to add to your show because I've been doing this for a long time, but then again, like, people say, well, then you end up talking to your wife about this stuff. And she's like, oh, okay. Yeah, it's nice, honey. Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Whatever you say, to be able to do this with guys that get it. And it's a blessing. It's a blessing. And I'm just glad I'm able to contribute in a meaningful way.
Absolutely. Guys, don't forget, smash that like button. I see 32 in there. 32 likes. I got 42 people watching right now, so hit that like button. Thanks for being in the chat as well, everybody. Man, it was really, really good. The chat kept moving through tonight. Had a bunch of questions and comments. We'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow is the last public day of training camp at Grand Park, if I remember reading that right. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think Loyalist said that he's going to try to show up tomorrow. Is that that right?
I'm definitely going to show up, and daggone it, Carson and Q and Ryan, you better show up too.
So if he does show up, we will have a late Patreon stream tomorrow. So if you want to join that stream and get first-hand account information from what Loyalist seen at the last day of public training camp, make sure you join the Patreon. It's only $5 a month. Both these guys here in this stream and probably a third of the people right there in the chat are part of my Patreon. And $5 a month ain't nothing, right? And you're going to get all of my content plus, opportunities to be part of these Patreon only streams that we do. So go check that out. And until next time, I'm Lawrence Owen, appreciating Joe Thornburg for being here. And as usual with Colts Loyalist, until next time, have a good one.